advantage. For instance, I had to deal with a situation with a commissioner on the board, and if I had been on the board, I would have responded directly to Mr. Forte in a public manner. I did so in terms of the public comment, and one of the points I made is that when he mentioned that about something about reparation, I indicated that I did not want him to give anybody give me money in hand. However, I wanted to follow the policy established by the city of Asheville, in which they passed a resolution indicating that they would provide more funding and to make sure that minority students had adequate schools, and also that they would be able to provide social services and health care for the minority community. And I was involved in the public education forum. I think this is where I got a clear idea of our situation. And there are two words, equality as well as equity. All right. In one case, if I'll pick on you, Maryland, in terms of height. If we gave Maryland, if Maryland and I were given the same step ladder, and we were trying to get fruit on the other side of the fence, apples or whatever, I think that would be called maybe equity. I get it mixed up, but anyway, that would be wrong. That would not be the right thing to do. However, if we gave Maryland 5-foot ladder and then 2-foot ladder, it would be equal. Okay. So the point I'm trying to make it in terms of Black Lives Matter and everything else, you can't say that I'm going to give some suburban school $1 million to deal with certain COVID problems and give the school downtown $1 million, because in the case of the minority schools and minority community, the health issues and the school issues are much more devastating. So anyway, that's the point I want to make, that I don't want to be pulled into some political argument that would draw me away from the problems that we have at hand. I want to stay focused on, say, Medicaid expansion, offshore drilling, so forth and so on. Okay, and I think sometimes politicians try to put us in a trap. So I made my statement at the county commissioners meeting, and in terms of Black Lives Matter, Mr. Forte, that would be all that that was supposed to be all that I had to say about that issue. Okay.
Okay, thank you. You have 2 minutes, Bill, if you'd like to make a closing statement.
Okay, thank you. First of all, and I'm so proud of myself. Why? Because I don't think Pete had raised his hand. Marlon raised his hand once. And for the newcomers, they don't need to know that I have a reputation, a false reputation for being, as my wife is saying, long-winded. But anyway, once retired, I wanted to use my unique combination of education and experience as a chemist in industry, the classroom, and Brunswick County Planning Board member to represent the citizens of this county. The Board of Commissioners needs someone who will present solutions to such long-term problems as pollution, air, and water, lagging upgrade of infrastructure, and inadequate healthcare coverage. Finally, I cannot participate in the League of Women Voters Candidate Forum. I did not participate earlier this week, could not, because, as Marilyn said earlier, my opponent refused to participate. That was the same strategy that they were using in 2018. If elected, I will never use this running high strategy that prevents voters from making an informed decision on election day. And go to my website, www.Flythe for Commissioner, to get more details about my experience, as well as my opinions on certain issues. I have a lot of letters to the editor that I've written, as well as other things. So I would like for you to visit my website. And also, if you don't have a copy of the Beacon and or the Pilot, buy a current edition, because I indicate in my campaign ad, as well as the questionnaires, the fact that my opponent refused to debate me in the candidates forum. And I say that I want to replace this AWOL commissioner, AWOL, absent without leave or permission. So I indicate that, hey, if you don't believe in this type of strategy, then I give the reasons why at the bottom of my ad, why you should vote for me. So I appreciate your time this afternoon, and God bless everybody and bless the United States of America.
Thank you, Bill, for joining us.
Marilyn,
I see there's a specific question. I'm sorry.
Hold on one second. Carl, can you record the meeting, please? Thank you, Marilyn. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry. There is a question in the chat room for Bill Flythe, so we're going to capture that, email it to him, and then post his response on the website. So I think now we're ready to go back to Paula, who's going to introduce Ryan Smithwick.
Marilyn,
Yes.
one question for David. I had planned to go to your concert this afternoon, David, but I think I saw an email that it was canceled. Is that correct?
Unmute yourself, David.
Yeah, I think so. I think it
I
was
think, yeah. Okay.
Well, it's been canceled, Bill, because the weather prediction was 40% chance of rain.
Mhm.
Of course, now the sun's shining and it's beautiful, but we'll reschedule.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, we're going to turn it over to Paula now.
Thank you, Marilyn. Next, we would like to welcome Attorney Ryan Smithwick. May I call you Ryan? Ryan?
Yes, ma'am, that's fine. Ryan?
Okay, thank you. Ryan is Ryan is currently a defense attorney in Charlotte and was also assistant district attorney in Mecklenburg County. He is running as an unaffiliated candidate for Superior Court judge and is running against Republican Jason Disbrow. Ryan earned his undergraduate degree from UNC Chapel Hill and his law degree from Campbell University. Before we ask you the first of 5 questions, Ryan, please introduce yourself and explain what a Superior Court judge does. You have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. My name is Ryan Smithwick. As you've mentioned, I'm your unaffiliated candidate for the Superior Court Judge of Brunswick County. I'm unaffiliated and I'm running as an independent. I think it's very important that the bench be independent. It's very important for each person that walks into the courtroom to feel that they're going to get a fair shake based on the facts and the law as it's presented in each case, and not based on their political or partisan affiliation. That's a very basic understanding I think all of us can agree on. It's very important for you to understand the difference between a district court judge and a superior court judge to understand why I'm running. A lot of folks in the community might not understand the difference between a district court judge and a superior court judge, and think that a district court judge, that you have to serve in that capacity before you run as superior court, and that's just not true. There are several tremendous district court practitioners that never set foot in superior court courtrooms their whole career. It doesn't mean anything against them, it just means that's what they've chosen to do. I have been in the Superior Court for the last 18 years. I spent 4 years in Charlotte, Mecklenburg County as a felony prosecutor. I tried violent crimes. I tried drug trafficking cases. I tried cases to verdict with juries. That's what a Superior Court judge does, cases with the use of the jury. In rare situations, a Superior Court judge can hear a bench trial in Superior Court, but that's only if the defendant waives his or her right to a jury trial and elects to let that judge hear his case alone. Again, that's a rare situation because a defense attorney has to have pretty good feel that that judge would be more favorable than a jury of his or her peers. As far as Superior Court is concerned, I've also served in the last 15 years in Brunswick County as a defense attorney representing individuals charged with serious felonies and have tried those cases to verdict as well. So the primary difference between district court and Superior Court is primarily there's no jury trials in district court. Especially in Brunswick County, we are very averse to using juries in district court. I don't know why, that's just how it's always been. In Superior Court, it's where you pick a jury, you try a case to verdict, and you render your verdict accordingly. A Superior Court judge also has to hear civil cases. We have a lot of North Carolina DOT condemnation cases in our county, and that will continue to grow with the growth that we're seeing. We also have civil cases involving breach of contract, involving limited liability companies and contractual disputes, and we have will caveats. We have a good bit of will litigation. I have tried civil cases to verdict as well. So the difference between my opponent and my opponent's, my understanding, has tried one civil case in his entire career in front of a jury. I have tried more than 40 cases in front of a jury, both as a prosecutor, as a defense attorney, and in a civil capacity. So that's the difference in our experience.
Thank you, Ryan. Your opponent, Judge Disbrow, did not respond to our invitation. Question number 1, why do you feel you are more qualified than your opponent for this position? You have 2 minutes.
Thank you very much. That simply comes down to my jury trial experience. We have to have a judge in Superior Court that can lean on his personal jury trial experience as a prosecutor and as a defense attorney to move these cases. Why is that important? I'm running as an independent, not only politically, but an independent with respect to the DA and with respect to the defense bar. I have not asked for their help. I don't need their help. I've tried cases on both sides, and I intend to push both sides to get rid of these cases. Why is that important? It's important to you and I as taxpayers, because when a person sits in jail for 2 years waiting for their trial, it's an expensive bill to house that inmate in our local county jail waiting to go to DOC. And we have cases in our jails for 2 years, 3 years, even up to 4 years. 2 years is too long for defendants to wait. It's too long for victims to wait for their day in court. It's too long for you and I as taxpayers to wait for their day in court. And I intend to move these cases.
Thank you, Ryan. You anticipated my next question. As a Superior Court judge, what strategies would you implement to make those charged with crimes who have to wait 2 years or more for a speedy trial?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for the question. First of all, we have about 4 months in Brunswick County before the prosecutor has to indict the defendant. So there's 4 months already off the bat right there that they've got to get their discovery together, get their reports, and get the defendant indicted. Once the case is indicted, Judge Disbrow has just passed a brand new case management policy that says that serious felony cases, armed robberies, first-degree kidnappings, first-degree burglaries at night, must be tried within 2 to 2.5 years. So you do the math, 4 months plus 2.5 years, 2 years, it's too long. Why? How can you shorten that? Well, as a former prosecutor, I know that when I indict a case, I've already got the discovery ready. I know what I'm going to offer the defendant. I can get the discovery to them in a timely manner, issue that plea offer, give them a reasonable amount of time to accept the plea offer. If they haven't accepted, get it on a trial calendar. If I'm elected as your next Superior Court judge, I will push cases by denying continuances. I can do that because I have the personal jury trial experience on both sides to know when a case should be pushed. Sometimes you have to institute discipline or sanctions if discovery is not extended in a timely fashion. Sometimes you have to implement rules that require that the defense attorneys check in at the jail and make sure they're actually going to see their clients. You'd be surprised how many defense attorneys may not go see their clients in a timely manner, and they're simply waiting for a plea or a trial date. So there are several things that I can do as a judge, and Judge Ola Lewis used to do absolutely as a judge to push these cases.
What about cash bail? Because you've got people waiting no, I'm saying, what about cash bail? Because that also is what keeps people waiting for long to be indicted.
Correct, but that's a much longer conversation from today. I can tell you that we do have a bond policy. It hasn't been addressed, I don't think, since 2008, when it was Judge Lewis and Judge Jerry Jolly was our Chief District Court Judge. It needs to be reviewed. Our district court judges are doing a good job right now to look at those bonds as they do first appearances as they come through district court, and then they're revisited again in Superior Court. But these serious offenses that we're seeing, The bonds are necessary to protect the community from the person reoffending. The question would be the lower level felonies, Class H's, Class I felonies. Those are starting to be handled in district court, and they're treating them out quicker because they just cannot make a bond.
Oh,
So,
okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, number 3 question, actually. That was my own question. I stuck in there. Sorry.
okay.
Okay, the next question. What can you do to encourage those with jury duty to not have their decision based on the color of someone's skin, gender, disability, language, or religion? You have 2 minutes. That's a tough one.
Well, yes and no. It's pretty basic under the law. The Superior Court judge's role is very peculiar in jury duty. When we have a jury pool or a veneer comes into the courtroom, they're oriented for a few minutes, and the judge tries to see anyone here who cannot follow the law, anyone here who cannot be fair and impartial. Most people are going to be too scared to say yes or no. If they're not excused, they're going to say, yes, I can be fair. But that is really up to the defense attorney and the prosecutor to ask the appropriate questions. There's a certain statute on point that talks about the questions that need to be fleshed out. The most important in my mind is, have any of you formed an opinion as to the guilt or innocence of my client just as he or she sits here today? And most people will say no, because we haven't heard any evidence yet. We don't know anything about the facts. But there are rare situations where you find someone who looks around and maybe hesitates to say no, simply because they've already made a decision looking at my client as they're sitting there beside me. So those questions have to be asked by the defense attorneys and by the prosecutors. It's up to the Superior Court judge as to whether a juror should be struck for cause. For cause means because they can't be fair or they can't follow the law, or whether the attorney has to burn a peremptory challenge and strike the juror.
Thank you. Thank you, Ryan. Okay, question number 4. There are several candidates for the North Carolina State House listening. What actions, if any, would you recommend regarding state requirements for minimum sentences? You have 2 minutes.
Well, we have a structured sentencing chart, and it's really clockwork for the Superior Court judge who's trying to hear the case. 99% of the cases that are pled out pursuant to an arrangement with the state and the defendant. That means when the transcript is presented to the Superior Court judge, the Superior Court judge is looking at that agreement and is going to say whether they go along with it or they don't agree with it. If they don't agree with it, they can reject that plea, and the defendant is given the automatic right to a continuance to try to hear that same plea in front of a different judge. But for structured sentencing, it really comes down to a chart, and you're looking at the class of the felony offense that's been committed, and you're looking at the person's prior record level. And the Superior Court judge must sentence in that particular block that matches up with the class of the offense and with the prior record level. There is some wiggle room for the Superior Court judge between an aggravated sentence, a presumptive sentence, or a mitigated sentence, but the only true mandatory minimum sentences involve drug trafficking and cases such as capital murder. Everything else is set pursuant to the sentencing chart, and there's not much flexibility for the judge unless the defendant decides to plead open. When a defendant pleads open and pleads in the court's discretion, then the court can still issue whatever ruling they want from that particular block. They can't deviate from the block that the defendant is locked into on the sentencing chart.
Thank you, Ryan. I think you may have answered this also, but I'm going to ask you. I think we're having difficulty with our sound. What can you do to reduce the number of young people charged with crime who appear before your court?
Well, number one, we have to get in our schools. We have to get in not just our high schools, but our middle schools.
Right.
We really have to get in there, and I have to tell them, do you know that an ounce of cocaine is going to cost you 35 months and there's nothing you can do about it unless you, of course, give substantial assistance? Do you know that if with your friends and you're going to buy some drugs and all of a sudden someone decides to pull a gun and steal those drugs, you're looking at 5 years mandatory minimum? I've seen too many clients that I've met for the first time in a jail cell, talking to them, showing them the sentencing chart, and they say, well, my buddy told me, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Y'all hear me?
Yeah.
And they say, well, my buddy told me it would be straight probation because it's my very first offense. But honestly, a lot of kids don't understand that there's certain crimes that once they're committed, there is no chance at probation. We also need our young kids to understand that certain convictions can never be expunged. Not everything can be expunged. There's just certain sets of offenses that can be expunged. So if we hit them early, I think that would help. One thing Judge Ola Lewis was very good at is what I call creative sentencing. She would craft a sentence to really put some things in place for the defendant to hope to never see them again, whether it be a parenting class at the community college, whether it be a financial course, whether it be something to require them to put savings aside to save that kid is on the way. I think we've got to invest in them early on and use our diversion programs and use our chance at creative sentencing in court to try to keep them out of our courtroom.
Thank you, Ryan. Pete, do we have any questions in the chat room for Ryan?
Do I just answer that one?
No, this is Pete has to let us know if there are any questions that have come in for you. Pete? Well, maybe we'll get back to Pete later, but thank you so much for joining us, Ryan. If you have additional, let me say first of all, no, yeah.
Excuse me, there is a question. Sorry
Okay.
about that, Ryan.
Okay. Go ahead.
If the state legislature and governor approved joining the National Popular Vote Interstate Compact.
That's a mistake.
Oh.
I put that question in and I realized that he's running for Superior Court.
Okay.
So it's
Thanks,
not,
Jeff.
it's not part of that jurisdiction.
Okay, never mind. That's it. Easy.
Okay.
Sorry about that.
That's right.
Thank you, Pete. Okay, if you have additional questions for Ryan Smithwick or his opponent, please mail them to kgrichardson@verizon.net, and we will post all responses on the NAACP website. Ryan, you have 2 minutes to make a closing statement.
Thank you very much for allowing me to speak.
Yeah.
Again, I am an independent, unaffiliated candidate. It's very important that the entire public understands that each and every person that comes into the courtroom is going to be judged based on the same law and the same facts as they're presented. I think it's very important that our next Superior Court judge also be independent from the elected officials in the courthouse. There needs to be a healthy level of separation between your Superior Court judge and your elected DA, a healthy level of separation between your Superior Court judge and your district court judges, and a level of separation between the defense bar. There's got to be a sense of independence on behalf of that Superior Court judge. At the same time, that person has to be efficient, and you can't be efficient if you don't have the jury trial experience to know how to move cases. I'd ask that you consider my experience both as a prosecutor and as a defense attorney and a civil practitioner. Please check out our website at smithwickforjudge.com and compare my Superior Court experience to my opponent's district court experience, and I'd ask that you make the right decision to vote Ryan Smithwick in November. Thank you very much.
Ryan, I apologize. There was one question that was to be asked of everybody, and that is having to do
Yes, sir.
with whether Black Lives Matter is a political statement, and perhaps you could comment on that for a minute.
Excuse me, this is Vince butting in. I'm the one
Yeah.
that's the question.
Yeah.
I withdraw the question. I'm getting too, these guys are being much too winded. I wanted a yes/no answer, and I realize that's impossible in this
see.
political world. So just
Okay.
withdraw the question, please. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay.
All
Ryan,
right.
would you care to comment anyway?
Well,
You're
I don't
right.
see it. I don't see it as a political statement. I see it more of a social statement. I mean, I truly believe that every single person is a child of God and determines just because you're a child of God, you should be entitled to absolute common decency and respect. And I think people are just tired of seeing certain individuals dying in custody. And just as there's attorneys that give attorneys bad names, there's 1 or 2 officers per 100 that might give a bad name. But the problem is, it's incredibly sad that we're even having to say the phrase Black Lives Matter, because if you truly are a person of God, you know that every life matters. And I believe that 100%. And I believe that I show that in my practice. So
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
thank you,
you.
Paula. We're going to now introduce our next candidate who's been waiting patiently, Tom Simmons. Tom is currently the Vice President of Education at the Boys and Girls Home of North Carolina. Tom earned a doctorate degree in education and he is the Democratic candidate for the NC House of Representatives, District 17, running against incumbent Frank Eiler. Before we start, I didn't call you Dr. Simmons, but is it okay if we continue with Tom? And you'll need to be unmuted.
Yes, Tom's fine.
Okay, good. Okay, so we've got a set of 5 questions. Before we start with that, Tom, can you expand a little bit on your background and your position statement, which states that you, quote, have the leadership skills necessary to find answers for today's issues?
Hey,
And,
Tom, before you answer, Marilyn, do you have another device working
No.
in your household?
No, it's off.
Okay, just getting some
Sorry.
strange feedback.
I'm
Sorry.
sorry. Okay. So we were asking you to expand on your background and position statement within 2 minutes, Tom.
Thank you, Marilyn. I think to explain why I'm running for the North Carolina House, I have to tell you about my background. When I was 10 years old, I had a choice to make to stay in an abusive home situation or run away and take my chances on the streets. And that's what I chose to do. I felt safer on the streets than at home. But I became the luckiest unlucky kid you could probably ever meet. Unlucky because my family put me in the situation I was in, but lucky because there was a place called Boys Home of North Carolina. And growing up at Boys Home, I learned a lot of things that changed my life. One of the things I learned is I didn't have to be afraid. The other is I knew that someone cared for me. And then I found out that education would just open doors of opportunities for me that I just never knew existed. So that's why I'm living in North Carolina House, because I want every child in North Carolina to know that somebody cares about them, that they don't have to be afraid, and they can get a quality education. My campaign statement about leadership skills, I do think I have the leadership skills that make me a good candidate to find answers for today's issues. And just by virtue of my 50-some years in education, I've got the vision to plan for tomorrow's future. So I think that I stand here to just ask you folks to consider me as a representative in the Brunswick in the North Carolina House of Representatives, because I just care deeply about children. And there's other issues too, but that's the main source for me.
Thank you, Tom. We're not going to be hearing from Tom's opponent, who's the incumbent Representative Frank Eiler, this afternoon. He did accept the invitation, but when I called to check with him yesterday, he told me he was going to be golfing this afternoon. These questions that came from the Vote 411 website, he didn't answer those questions, and he also refused to participate in the League of Women Voters Candidate Forum. Because of Frank Eiler's refusal, that meant that Tom was also not allowed to participate. So we're going to ask Tom 5 questions. And the first is, what did you see as the most important priority if you're elected? 2 minutes.
Well, Marilyn, there are a lot of priorities, but I think the first thing that has to be done, the very first thing, is to start communicating between both parties. Because if we don't do that, we're going to stay in gridlock for no telling how long. So I'm willing to go to Raleigh, and I'm willing to find some GOP members that I can sit down with and talk, and we can find some common ground, but we can also find solutions for those things that politically, ideology-wise, we're not in agreement with. I just believe that when it comes to serving the people of North Carolina, you have to put aside your political ideology, and you have to come to an understanding that I want to be a statesman, not a politician. A politician will make decisions and hope the political chips won't fall on his shoulders. A statesman will make decisions based on what's best for the citizens that he or she is representing.
Thank you. So second question, Tom, access to affordable health care is one of the biggest issues affecting Americans today, especially during this pandemic. Do you support Medicaid expansion in North Carolina? Why or why not? 2 minutes.
Yes, ma'am, I do. I think that it's a shame that here in North Carolina, we have approximately 600,000 people. By the way, 130,000 of those are children that aren't insured. We know from studies that a child's future success in school and graduating school depends on that early childhood health care that we can provide for them. So I think that's one of the ways that we cut down on some of our Medicaid, some of our healthcare costs, is by getting children into Medicare, into healthcare as early as we can. My opponent seems to feel like that Medicaid is not the answer. Matter of fact, he said the only people that Medicaid is going to help are those that get free insurance. He's just wrong. We ought not look at it that way. We ought to look at it, we're trying to make people more kind of healthy so that they can make a decision to go to a doctor or pay a light bill. I just think that it's time we expand Medicaid. I think it's, as a matter of fact, all of our tax dollars that we spend for Medicaid are going to other states anyway. It's not going to cost us anything. We'll be getting our tax dollars back. So I certainly am going to push for expansion of Medicaid, and I hope that enough of the folks in the General Assembly on both sides of the aisle will say that we have to make sure that all citizens of North Carolina have access to quality health care.
Thank you. Third question, education policy and funding issues have been in the news recently. How should these be addressed in the coming year? And 2 minutes is not enough, but that's what you get.
No, it's not. But I have to go back to 2010 when North Carolina was ranked 7th in the nation in per pupil spending. Flash forward 10 years when the GOP's been in and they talk about all this increased funding to education, guess where we are now? 39th in the nation. If we keep going at this rate, the way they're funding us and increasing the funding, we'll be in the bottom 50% before too long. So I think that we have to make education a priority in North Carolina and fund education so that we can have quality classrooms and quality school buildings. And it's not just, the answer is not just hiring more teachers, because if you hire more teachers, you got to have more classrooms. That means construction money. So the state has to step up. They have to look at ways to find additional funding for education so that we can meet the needs of students. And this year, I have a feeling that test scores in North Carolina is going to drop because of virtual learning.
Thank you. I don't know if anybody else saw it, but I think I just saw a monarch butterfly show up on my screen there.
I thought I just morphed into something.
Question 4, Tom. The tax policy can be used to address many issues, like subsidies to companies coming to North Carolina, balancing the needs of urban and rural areas, providing family support such as earned income tax credit. What are your views about tax policies in North Carolina? In 2 minutes.
Well, I think the tax policies ought to be revisited. We need to look at the tax cuts that were given to big businesses and the top 1% of the wealthy in the state. I think it's somewhat unfair that individual citizens are paying 5.5% tax rate, and these big multi-million-dollar, multi-billion-dollar companies are paying 2%. That's just not right. And so everybody should pay their fair share. I don't have a problem with companies getting incentives for bringing clean, good-paying jobs to North Carolina, but I would put a stipulation on that 50% of your workforce must come from the area where you're going to do business in. That way we can assure that this company won't bring their workers in and leave the local folks out of a good-paying job.
Thank you, Tom. The last question before we go to the chat room. There are ongoing protests across the country in response to the deaths of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, and all those others. Do you think that changes to the laws in our state would improve safety in our communities, such as addressing no-knock warrants, use of excessive force, and chokeholds by local police?
I think our laws need to be revisited, and we do need to take a look at unnecessary restraints, unnecessary chokeholds. Those things are just not what we need in society. They tell us in schools that you can't restrain a student. Well, why does that change when you become an adult? That a law officer can put a chokehold on you, put his knee in your neck? I don't think there's any. I think it's a big difference. I think though that we need to have a better way of screening potential law enforcement agents. We need to make sure that they're trained in how to defuse situations instead of escalate the situation. I support law enforcement. I want to do everything I can, and I'm not supportive of defunding law enforcement, but I just think that we need to look at how we're also tracking law officers. If a law officer is dismissed from one job He should go on a register so that he couldn't go to another county or another state and get the same job and do the same thing over. I truly believe in that.
Thank you. Pete, do you have any questions in that chat room, or Pete or Brayton, for Tom?
I don't think so. Brayton, do you see anything in here?
Marilyn, I'd like to answer the question on Black Lives Matter.
Okay, sure. Go ahead, Tom.
It is a shame in this country that Black Lives Matter has to be a statement of the racism, systemic racism in this country. One of the most important things that a leader can do is stand up and speak out when racism or hatred occurs anywhere at any time. There's no place for it in North Carolina. When my opponent stands silent when a member of his party posts a racial statement, just stands silent and doesn't ask him to apologize for that or take that down, that tells me something. And racism in America is never going to get any better until all politicians, all leaders really believe that Black Lives Matter and take a stance against racism, take a stance against hatred. And let's put it out, let's just stamp it out. Are we going to get rid of all of it? No, we're not. But at least our leaders can set an example. At least our leaders can say, we will not have this anymore.
Thank you, Tom. You have 2 minutes now if you'd like to make a closing statement.
Thank you. There's an old saying that the worst thing that can happen to communication is just to assume that it's happened. Well, for the past 9 years, Mr. Eiler has assumed that he's been communicating with the citizens of Brunswick County. And I would just say, if he really wants to communicate, why does he stand silent when legislation in Raleigh is passed that he knows hurts Brunswick County? Why does he stand silent when he won't stand up to the Brunswick County Commissioners and say, you guys, you ladies and gentlemen, need to get a resolution against offshore drilling? Why does he stand silent when people can't see a doctor? Why doesn't he say, we are going to make sure these people can see a doctor. We're going to make sure they're insured. Why does he stand silent when blatant racism is right in front of his face and he won't even call out a member of his own party? I want to go to Raleigh to take a commitment that I will hold monthly town hall meetings, because I need to come back to Brunswick County on a monthly basis and say, here's what we've covered in Raleigh, here's what's coming up. Give me your input, give me some suggestions so that when I vote the way you ask. Matter of fact, I told the caucus leaders that if I'm elected, I will not be just a yes vote for the Democratic side of the House. I will be a vote that votes in the best interests of Brunswick County. I want to be transparent and I want to seek citizens' input when I make those decisions. I did say that I had the leadership skills to find answers to today's problems, and I had the visionary skills to plan for tomorrow's future. And I hope that the folks will give me an opportunity to take that leadership skill, take that visionary skill to Raleigh, and let's make Brunswick County a better place to live, work, and play.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you for waiting. Anybody that wants to ask any questions of Tom, we can email them to kjrichardson@verizon.net, and we'll scan through the chat and make sure there aren't any there. And we'll post his responses on the NAACP website.
Marilyn,
So now we're excited. We actually have,
Marilyn,
yes.
we do have questions on the chat that will be carried forward to be answered later.
Who was the speaker?
What?
We do have questions on the chat, but we'll.
Well, we're gonna capture those and go on to our next candidates.
That's correct.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So now we're ready to turn it over to Paula to introduce the school board candidates for Brunswick County District 2. Can we
Paul,
go on to Paula?
yeah, I need to unmute yourself.
Oh.
Okay. Thanks again, Marilyn. Okay. We are pleased that both candidates for the Brunswick County School Board District 2 have agreed to participate this afternoon. Mr. David Robinson, Republican, and Ms. Sherrill Jolly, Democrat. May I call you David and Sherrill?
With me.
Sherrill?
Yes,
Thank you.
ma'am, that'll be fine.
Thank you both. The incumbent, Ms. Catherine Cook, lost in the primary race last spring to Mr. David Robinson. I'm also very pleased that both candidates participated in the League of Women Voters Forum on Tuesday and answered the questions on vote411.org. We are going to rotate who answers each of 6 questions. So in alphabetical order, Sherrill will start. Question number 1. What experiences and qualities do you feel you bring to this office? You have 2 minutes.
Well, I have been a Brunswick County teacher for 30 years. I retired in Brunswick County, and I was a rookie teacher. Brunswick County gave me a chance, and they offered me the opportunities to develop as a mature professional. I know what it's like to be in a classroom. I was never a principal. I wasn't an administrator. I was a teacher. And I know what it's like for the students in the classroom. I know what it's like for the janitors and the nutrition people. I know what school is. And I think that is what makes me able to best represent all of the factions that come together to make up school. I love Brunswick County. I love Brunswick County schools. I think we have outstanding educators and we have outstanding students. And I don't think we give ourselves enough credit for what we have. And I don't think a lot of parents understand all of the opportunities that are available to their students. And so one of my things that I would love to see is some communication that opens up what are the opportunities your child has as they kind of maneuver through the educational system of Brunswick County.
Thank you, Sherrill. I'm going to ask David, I'm going to ask you the same question, and I'm also going to ask you the second question. The first question again is, what experiences and qualities do you feel you bring to this office? You have 2 minutes.
Sure. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here tonight and speak. I've lived in Brunswick County all my life. I'm a native here to Brunswick County, having lived in the Holden Beach area. I also attended Brunswick County Public Schools, both kindergarten through 12th grade, and I also attended Brunswick Community College. I've worked in emergency services over the past 30 years, and that has offered me the ability to work with a lot of different people throughout the county, including folks in the school system and other entities. But most importantly, I've had the opportunity to work with a lot of the students and the parents in the county, and I've seen firsthand some of the needs and situations that's going on inside of homes and issues that are occurring inside the school system. I have a very close relationship with our law enforcement agency here in the county. As a matter of fact, many of them, including the sheriff's office. And, you know, that gives me a unique idea of what's occurred over the years and continues to occur. I have family presently enrolled in the school system and have relationships there, as well as other relationships with many of the staff that works within the school system. So, you know, I have a unique understanding of the system, and the public service experience I have gives me the unique qualifications and experience to be able to make good decisions, hopefully.
Thank you very much. Question number 2, what do you think is the most important responsibility of a school board member? You have 2 minutes.
The school board has a lot of responsibilities, really. First of all, you know, we have to understand that the state of North Carolina and the federal government mandate a lot of what goes on inside the school system. And having that understanding, one big thing we have to do is lobby for funding, getting adequate funding to support our school system, and understand that we have to set realistic goals and objectives. Our school system include infrastructure needs and having the appropriate equipment and things we need to make the school system work. We also have to demonstrate that responsibility to the government, state and federal, that we understand what we need, we have a vision, and when we request funding, that, you know, we have that need. So I think that's a big part of the school board's responsibility, is making sure that we have funding. You know, speaking on the question, you know, what major issues for the school board. That is one of the biggest issues, and we have to lobby for that funding and involve everyone to ensure we can get appropriate funding to continue to function the school system.
Thank you very much. Okay, Sherrill, I'm going to ask you that same question, and then I'm going to ask you another one after that. So again, what do you think is the most important responsibility of a school board member?
Absolutely. Dealing with the budget of the school and making sure that the money is used wisely, and soliciting the General Assembly to give money to the public schools. I don't think that has been done enough. I don't think we've utilized our elected officials to help us. And I think the school board could do more in that. We've also got to understand that the state is only going to be able to give you so much money. And we've got to look for other ways to get money. One of those, of course, is through grant writing. So I think we need to hire a grant writer, not full-time, but certainly someone who has experience in that area and can help us to get some of the monies we need for very specific programs that we want. And so I think as a school board, we've got to be worried about the funding, but the other responsibility is communicating with the community, the parents, the teachers, the staff, the students, and knowing what those people would like and what they need and listening to them. And so I think that is one of the first things that can come about.
Thank you, Sherrill. Next question. What are the critical state funding needs for this county? Schools, sorry. What is the critical state funding for this county, funding for this county? Schools, and how would you address those needs? Do I need to read that again?
I think I understand it. I think I got it. All right. I think one of the most critical areas is in resources. Obviously, technology is always advancing, and you cannot just have technology from 2012 and hope that it works in 2014. You've got to absolutely keep pace with technology. The other thing is textbooks. Students need books that they can learn from, that they can take home, and that they can read themselves. I think as an English teacher, I've been teaching from the same textbook for 17 years. And so there's no textbook money that has been earmarked by the state budget. And that is an issue. Then you also, if you're not going to give textbooks, you got to give people paper and copies and the ability to pay copyrights on particular products. So the funding is for resources is absolutely paramount. You have also got to pay your teachers and your staff in order to maintain and retain the best of the best. In the 1990s, that was always what Brunswick County was talking about. We hire and we retain the best of the best. If you want to do that, then you're going to have to pay money for the best of the best, because Horry County is really close. New Hanover, I had a friend who went to New Hanover, raised her salary by $3,000 a year, doing the exact same jobs she was doing in Brunswick County for free. And so we've got to look at those kind of salary schedules in those two counties and say, what can we do to help Brunswick County to be able to help our teachers?
Absolutely. Thank you, Sherrill. David, I'm going to ask you the same question and then another question. What are the critical state funding needs for this county schools? And how would you address those needs?
Yeah, there's a lot of, as Sherrill said, there's a lot of resources needed in the school system. One thing that really bugs me is every year we come around to budget time, or we start the school system, or we start school rather. It's teachers are struggling to find basic supplies to take care of their children. We're having to find notebooks. We're having to find pencils, pads. You know, why do we need to be doing that? As much money that flows through Brunswick County and the state of North Carolina. Teachers should not be having to rob Peter to pay Paul for basic necessities for our students to function day in and day out in the classroom. And then again, for the other obvious items, textbooks, other materials, and then of course, infrastructure needs. These are all things that we need to address with the state to effectively get funding for. And we don't just need to talk about, you know, we're going to look at this and we're going to address this. We need to force the issue. We need to work, like Mr. Simmons said earlier, I've known him for many years. You know, we've got to get people talking on both sides of the aisles here and not make this a political issue. Let's do our job, get fundings to the school system. And with the new issue of COVID coming in, you know, we've even got more issues to address coming up. So this ain't over yet. We've got some big issues to tackle, and we've got to stay on top of the state to do their job. And we also need to make sure we understand where that lottery money's going. Is it coming to where it needs to be coming to? Those questions.
That's a good question. This next question, I think it really goes to the issue of money, but I'm going to ask it anyway. How would you assess teacher satisfaction in the county? And how would you promote teacher retention as well as professional development? 2 minutes.
Absolutely.
This is for David.
Yeah, this comes back again to the money issue. We've got to spend money. You know, if we're going to have quality teachers and expect to have quality educated students come out of our systems, we got to spend money and get the best folks we can get. You know, right now, I know in Brunswick County, you know, I went to school here in Brunswick County. I have a relationship with a lot of the folks here in the county now. You know, I don't know very many teachers that can say, yes, I'm happy with my pay. I'm happy with my supplement. I don't know anyone that told me I'm happy with it. You know, yes, teachers are kind of like those of us with fire and EMS. We're not doing it to make money, but we would surely love to be compensated to what we're qualified to do for actually what we're having to do. But, you know, we've lost a lot of people that's going across the line over to South Carolina. I know Horry County, their supplement pays a lot more than Brunswick County. And again, understanding that the state sets teacher salaries, or sets credentialed folks' salaries within the school system, or certified folks. We've got to be knocking on those doors. People are sitting in their seats in Raleigh, keeping a seat while we're down here in Brunswick County begging for money, and education being one of the biggest issues facing our county right now. We've got to be on top of things and say, hey, show us the money. Let's work together and get this right.
Thank you, David. Thank you. Sherrill, I'm going to ask you the same question and then another question. How would you assess teacher satisfaction in the county? And how would you promote teacher retention as well as professional development?
As far as assessing, being able to know what the level of satisfaction is, the state actually does a working condition survey every 2 years with North Carolina teachers and Brunswick County teachers. As a board, we need to look at that, and we need to say, these are issues that continuously come up with our teachers. What can we do to mend those issues for them? What can we do to make it better for them? As far as professional development goes, we had one great professional development. It was one day we went and different teachers taught different classes, and you could take like 5 or 6 classes a day. And you learned from the people, you chose what you wanted to do, and you learned from people here in Brunswick County. And if you had questions, you had them really close by. We've got to start giving people professional development that makes a difference for them, and not just decide that everybody needs to learn about this. We've got to look at what they're doing in the schools. We've got to ask the teachers how they want to be developed. And then we've got to find a way to do that. And that was a great way to have professional development that costs really very little money.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Sherrill. Let me ask you, who's looking at those surveys? Who's looking at them, and what happens as a result of them?
It actually goes to the state, and it is published on the North Carolina Department of Public Instruction website by county, and then by school inside that county. And Department of Public Instruction is supposed to be looking at it, but it's available for our representatives, our senators, our commissioners, and our Board of Education members to look at.
It sounds to me like people are just looking, but nothing is happening. Is that correct, or am I misunderstanding?
I'm not, and I hate to disparage anyone, but I'm not even sure anybody's looking. Because if you find out a problem, then you gotta try to fix it. Or I do. I don't know about anybody else, but if I know there's an issue, I gotta try to fix it. And to tell you the truth, for the past 12 years, it feels like education in the state of North Carolina has been floundering. And of course, that affects Brunswick County directly.
Thank you, Sherrill. I'm going to ask you another question. On the League of Women Voters survey, you rated pre-kindergarten as very important. Please explain that. Expand upon it.
Yes, pre-K, sometimes called Head Start or Smart Start, is a great equalizer. For students who are developmentally behind their peers, it gives them an opportunity at the ages of 3, 4, 5 to try to even out those disparities. A lot of students who are low socioeconomic students, their parents don't have the resources to give them the opportunities. I mean, it's not that they don't want to, it's just that they don't have those resources. And so Smart Start and Head Start can help those students with some resources that would not be available to them until they got to kindergarten, at which point they're behind. Statistics tell us if a student enters school behind, it's almost impossible to catch up to grade level. And then the chances of flunking out or not graduating become greater too. And so it's a long-term, those early years can have such a long-term effect on a student's education, the community at large, and how those people are able to contribute to the community. It is just so important for that.
That's true. Thank you very much, Sherrill. David, same question that you answered on the League of Women Voters survey. You also rated pre-kindergarten as very important. Can you expand on that, please? David?
He's muted.
No, you're unmuted.
Was it me?
Yeah, there we go. I'm good. I'm back. Sorry about that.
Okay.
Yeah,
David, Rob.
Yeah. Everybody good now?
David.
We got you. Okay, go ahead.
David over here. Yeah, I agree with pre-K and the Smart Start program. Those are resources, you know, I've studied a lot more on those. You know, that wasn't something back in my day that was, that really was focused on a lot or even existed much. I do agree that it gives the students a jump start for what to expect once they enter into the official school system, into the kindergarten program. And there's been a lot of time and resources invested into that pre-K program to make it successful. And again, once we're moving these students over into kindergarten, you know, hopefully it will give them a jump start of what to expect once they have entered officially into the school system. So I did rate pre-K education as important and promote that.
Thank you, David. I'm going to ask you another question that may have been answered somewhat before, but I want to get your take on it. How would you address the school to prison pipeline that seems to mostly affect Black and brown children?
Yeah, You know, I think a lot of our issues start in the home. We have to, you know, there has to be mamas and daddies in the homes. That's the desire to help get folks started out on the right foot. You know, I feel that that's very important. Promoting the family venue, promoting family. That's very important to me. Again, children, they need mamas and daddies. They need mentors and role models to get them on the straight and narrow right to start with. I do think presently in our county, there's been some good programs that help with this, such as the DARE program, the Teen Court program. You know, we have the Juvenile Crime Prevention Council. We have a lot of things out there, but we probably should take a look at those things and see how effective they're working. Do we sort of need to restructure those? For example, you know, when new judges come in, new sheriff comes in, you know, we probably all need to look together to see if what we're doing already is actually working. Do we see that this is not working? We probably need to get everybody back to the table, community partners and stakeholders together to really look at this closely and say, you know, is what we're doing now working? What additional steps can we take to reduce this type of activity and try to keep all offenders out of the pipeline, prison pipeline? And but again, I always want to come back to it starts in the home and as it does in the community as well.
Now, I'm glad that you mentioned about additional steps. What about working with the North Carolina School Justice Partnership?
Yeah, absolutely. And again, as I mentioned, you know, locally having the, you know, the community juvenile crime prevention, you know, we all must collaborate together. I think we need to get folks locally involved at the state level as well. And the big thing I see there is communicating, reviewing our statistics from a local perspective and trying to figure out again at all levels, what exactly can we do to change things and make things better? But the communication gap is where I feel we have a big problem. I don't think we're all communicating as well as we need versus local level.
Yeah, the North Carolina School Justice Partnership is very new. And with COVID having taken place this year, do you have any familiarity with the program at all?
Not much. I saw on the internet there had been a scheduled meeting, but it had been canceled, or the most recent meeting had been canceled. So among a lot of different things I'm learning, I reviewed some of that early on on the website, or the information they provided on the website. But if I'm not mistaken, I did see a most recent meeting cancellation.
Okay, thank you, David. Sherrill, same question. How would you address the school to prison pipeline that mostly affects Black and brown children?
I do believe that we do have some good programs in place. As David mentioned, the DARE program, the Teen Court program. They're also putting Teen Court into the middle schools now. I think those are great opportunities for students to get a second chance or to know what kind of resources are out there to help them. I think we do need families, and I think some parents need some help. They don't know all the things that are out there. They don't know all the resources available to them. They don't know all the opportunities in the schools for their students. I would like to see students who are starting to get in trouble in school, that we have a list of mentors from the community, especially the African-American churches and the African-American community, to work with those particular students, to mentor them and give them a chance to see that someone cares, someone is on top of things, this person cares enough to find out something about me. They don't seem to have an agenda, they just want me to do well. And sometimes you need that extra person to say, look, you can do this. This is an opportunity. You need to take advantage of this. One of my students asked me if she should fill out a form for college, and I said, you can't get any less in than you are now. So you got to give it an effort. You know, they can't come back and take anything else away from you. You're not in right now. So they'll either say yes or no. It'll be okay. And so you need some people to say that, to say, go for it. You know, you can do this. We'll find ways to help you. And we've got to communicate with parents. What activities are there for students? What opportunities are there? The BCC grant for students who graduate. Your parents can't afford college? That's 2 years you can go for free just by keeping your GPA up. You know, I believe that we have a vocational program in place that not enough students are taking advantage of. They can go to BCC and get their first welding certificate. That we have electrical trades where they can come out of high school with a licensed 1 electrical trade. They can take health occupations and come out of high school with a CNA license. They can take cosmetology when they graduate at BCC. When they graduate from high school, they only have 1 more year, and that's at all of the high schools. And so they can take courses online, tuition free while they're in high school, or BCC also has classes that come to the schools. So it's like we need to especially let minority students know there are opportunities for you. And finally, I want to see an apprentice program where students get an opportunity to actually take what they've learned in the classroom and take it onto a job site and see if that's a job you really want to do. And if it is, you've already got someone who can be a recommendation for you for another job. So these are all things that I think would be absolutely paramount to giving students some hope that they don't have to fall into the same pattern that has been established beforehand, that they can rise up above what they thought they could do.
Thank you, Sherrill. You've answered made some really good points. I'm curious about, aside from the community colleges coming into the school to let students know what's available, their parents don't know. So how do the parents get made aware of what opportunities exist?
I think sometimes, especially in the high school, we kind of rely on the student to make the decisions. And sometimes 16 to 17-year-olds don't make the best decisions because they're looking short term, not long term. And so I think we need to just be able to communicate with parents, put it on the websites of the schools. Each school has a website. You know, have the principal make a call and say, we're talking about the programs that are going to be available. You know, this night we're doing it with freshmen, sophomores, juniors, seniors, you know, and get as many parents in there as you can get and get them talking about the opportunities, because not everybody can come at 7 o'clock at night. But if you can get 3 or 4 people to come and hear about it, they're going to start talking to other people. But we've got to start PRing the programs that we have.
Thank you, Sherrill. I know we're a bit over time, but I wanted to ask you also, you mentioned teen court. Now, there is peer court that exists in the middle schools.
Yes.
So they have it, you know, they have it there, which is, I understand, is working really well with the communities and schools
Right.
to oversee that, you know, so that's a good thing. Also, the Coast, I understand that that has recently come into existence. It's a school for kids to learn life skills, trades, carpenters, and things like that.
And also STEM classes that can't be offered in the high schools. Is my idea. I saw that they were doing robots or building some technology that they were working with. So yes, those kind of classes that are more pinpointed toward a particular career or a particular study.
One last question for you is North Carolina School Justice Partnership. Are you familiar with that? I understand it's fairly new, and I know with COVID, a lot of things have not yet happened. I think it just started in 2019.
I have had very limited experience with it. What I know, I basically learned from their website.
Okay.
And I don't think they've really been able to get it moving because of the COVID.
Okay, but as a school board member, would you be amenable to working with them
Hey,
to really?
if somebody wants to come and do a presentation and they've got a program that will help, I will work
Yeah.
with anyone in order to help our students.
Sounds really great. Thank you very much, Sherrill. And
Paula?
David, thank you both very much. Do you
Paula?
have questions?
We have a
Yes.
couple of questions from the chat.
Yep, that's what I was going to ask you for.
Yeah, this is for both candidates.
Okay.
This person is suggesting that salaries for school board seem extremely high, or higher, than other counties, and wonder if there's any reason that they can offer why the salaries here are so high for Board of Education, I think she meant, members in relation to other counties of comparable size.
David, you want to go first? Or?
Sure. Yeah, I don't know. The last time I saw that the school board increased that salary to themselves, there was a little bit of controversy over that. So I'm not really sure what ideas they use to give themselves a raise. I will say this, and I believe Sherrill would agree with me. This is not about money. This is about improving the education of our students in Brunswick County. I don't care what office you're running from. You don't need to be sitting back and trying to figure out what you're going to pay yourself to help improve the citizens' lives and the students' lives of our county. But I'm not sure what strategies they used, but I do know that there was a little controversy the last time they gave themselves a raise. I'm not sure. I will say this, I believe if some of the parents gave evaluations, there probably wouldn't have been any raises.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you, David. Sherrill?
I agree with David. I was teaching in the schools and I have no idea what their thinking was in raising the salary. When I saw what the salary was, I was shocked because honestly, I didn't know people got paid to hold local positions. That just stymied me. I couldn't imagine. I know if you have to move to Raleigh and spend quality time there, you're probably going to need some money, but I did not know that local positions got paid and paid well. And I think that if somebody says we don't have the money for something, maybe that's the first place we need to look.
Could take some of the money from there.
Okay, another question.
I think we probably need to move on, and we'll capture the next questions.
Another question is whether they would.
Did you want to save questions until later? I think we need to save the questions until later because we really are running over time right now, and we have other candidates.
We're going to try to capture them and email the candidates.
All right.
Yeah. So right now, each of you can make a closing statement. Sherrill and David.
Sherrill, me, who?
Go ahead, David.
Sure. Guys, I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. I love Brunswick County. Brunswick County has given me so many opportunities here to do so many different things. I'm a product of the Brunswick County educational system, and I think I've been treated well. And having served in emergency services for over 30 years, I've worked with people, been in so many people's lives, and I just wanted to continue the ability to serve the people. I love the people in this county. It's not about Republican or Democrat, in my opinion. I know that's been a big issue. But folks, this is about doing what's right for the citizens of Brunswick County and doing what's right for our children. And I want to be able to look at everything, if elected to the school board, I want to be able to help everyone. I know there's a lot of people right now inside our school system that's scared to speak for fear of repercussions. That's not right. As an elected official, you got to be listening to everybody. You need to listen to what everybody has to say and work with everybody. And again, communications among the school board and the parents and the caregivers out there, that is paramount. We have all got to communicate. All stakeholders have got to work together so that we're doing the right thing for our children in this county. We've just got to do better with it. We've got to communicate, and we've got to remember, if we're going to be an elected official, we're going to answer to the taxpayers. We're going to answer to the people who put us in office and do our jobs.
Thank you, David. Sherrill, thank you.
I have taught in Brunswick County schools for 30 years. I have lived longer in Brunswick County than I have anywhere else in my entire life. I love Brunswick County, and I want it to be a beacon to the rest of the state to say that's how we need to do things. And so I'm ready to listen to any idea, and I want to try some innovation and not just do the same old thing, the same old way we've been doing it. And we do need to shake it up, and we do need to stop pretending, or excuse me, we do need to stop acting like Republican or Democrat matters when it comes to things like our students. It really does not. What matters is doing the best for them, doing the best for our teachers so they don't have to work 2 jobs in order to survive with their family. I'm a teacher who has never had a summer off because I've always worked a 2nd job, sometimes a 3rd job. And so I can tell you that it is not fun. And so I want to do the best I can for the people of Brunswick County.
Appreciate that, both of you. Thank you very much for attending. And now to answer the question that Pete had before, if people have additional questions for either David Robinson or Sherrill Jolly, please email those questions to kgrichardson@verizon.net, and we will post the responses on the NAACP website. Thank you both. Marilyn?
All right. Thank you, Paula. That's what a candidate forum is supposed to be, when both the candidates show up and answer questions from the voters. So thank you, David and Sherrill. This concludes the responses from the candidates that were invited and responded to our invitation. However, as we noted when we got started today, the judicial races, we initially limited our invitation to just the race that Ryan Smithwick and Jason Disbrow are running in, the Superior Court race, because of the size of the ballot and the length of the meeting here. But in the meantime, we had 2 requests, and I don't know if they're still online with us here. Judge Lora Cubbage and Judge Paula Hankins both asked to participate.
Yeah, they're both here.
So, oh, good, great. So rather, because we didn't send that invitation out, we didn't have a chance to ask their opponent, one of the races, there is an opponent. To be fair, rather than to ask questions, we thought at the end of this, we'd give each candidate 5 minutes to introduce themselves and talk about their campaign. And then Chris Ward was online, but I glanced at a chat, he had to leave. So once Judge Cubbage and Judge Hankins make their statements, then we'll conclude. There's just a couple closing remarks here. So if you'd like to go ahead, Lora Cubbage.
Good afternoon to you all, and it has been an absolute pleasure to be on this call and just hear the passion from the candidates from your area. As Marilyn said, I am Superior Court Judge Lora Christine Cubbage, and you will see that whole name on the ballot. I am running for the North Carolina Court of Appeals for seat number 5. One of my mentors that holds the seat, Judge Wanda Bryant, hails from down in Supply, North Carolina, which is why I wanted to be able to introduce myself to you all. I am excited about carrying on Judge Wanda Bryant's legacy. I have studied up under her for many, many years, and I know I have big shoes to fill, but I believe that I am prepared to fill those shoes. You all heard earlier from candidate Ryan Smithwick, who spoke to you in a lot of detail about the complexity of the duties he would have if elected as Superior Court judge. I serve in that capacity now, and you will hear from Judge Hankins, who also serves in that capacity right now. And I can tell you that all of what he said is very true about how complex and in-depth our jobs are. Now, the jobs at the Court of Appeals that I will be doing when and if elected to hold that seat is looking back over those cases that come from the trial court, and 90% of those cases will come from the Superior Court bench for criminal and civil, and see not what the case is about pertaining to the facts, but what the judge did wrong in those cases, and if the judge did something wrong. And in order to be able to review those cases and ascertain what the judge did wrong in a jury trial, you would likely be able to do that better if you had jury trial experience, which I do. I have held the legal positions of Assistant District Attorney, Assistant Attorney General, District Court Judge, and Superior Court Judge. I have served as a plaintiff/victims attorney as well as a defense attorney for the state. I am well versed in criminal as well as civil law. I am also well versed in workers' compensation law as well as in appellate law. I have practiced and or presided in every trial court on the district and superior court levels. I have ensured the protections of families, the protections of juveniles, the protections of businesses, and the protections of rights guaranteed by the North Carolina and the U.S. Constitutions. I have had the opportunity to be appointed by the Chief Justice of the North Carolina Supreme Court to preside over what we in North Carolina call as 2.1 cases. Those are your complex civil cases where you're talking about hundreds of thousands and millions of dollars in litigation, as well as been appointed by the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court to preside over matters in which the legislative branch has been challenged, and we have to determine the constitutionality of that action. I've been committed and will remain committed to being an independent judge that provides thorough legal analysis to every decision that I make on the bench, and my decisions are made by upholding the Constitution, by the rule of law, and by the demands of justice. And I have committed and will stay committed to leaving partisan politics outside of the doors of the judicial building, because partisan politics have no place in the judiciary. And I think it's important for you all to know all of that, because we were made to run in partisan races as judges, but I assure you no judicial candidate and no sitting judge wants to run in partisan races. When we're reviewing cases, we do not want to be regarded as a Republican judge or a Democratic judge, but as a judge who looks at things independently through the lens of the rule of law and what justice demands. I am the only candidate for seat number 5 that's ever practiced appellate law, the only candidate that's ever served on the Superior Court bench, so the only candidate that's adequately qualified to transition from the Superior Court bench onto the Court of Appeals bench. Now, don't get me wrong, I respect what my opponent is doing as a district court judge. I respect what he's doing as a juvenile judge. But just frankly, to be honest with you, that experience as a district court judge and as a juvenile, in the juvenile realm, just does not translate to the experience that is needed to do the job that is required at the Court of Appeals. So with that being said, I humbly and respectfully thank you guys for allowing me the opportunity to introduce myself. I ask that you visit my website at www.cubbage4forjudge.com to read more about me, and I humbly and respectfully ask for your vote, and please vote that whole ballot. I try to encourage people to vote the ballot from the bottom up. No one's going to forget to vote for the president, but there's always a 10 to 15% drop off of people that vote for the president and then go down and vote for your local and state leaders. And it is us local and state leaders that will make decisions that will affect the lives of you, your business, your children, and just your overall family. So we need you to make sure every race is checked. And again, if you will select Lora Christine Cubbage for Court of Appeals, I would be most appreciative and promise to continue to serve with the same integrity that I have been serving for the last 15 years. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Judge. That's an opportunity that we rarely get, is to hear from somebody in your position. So thank you. And if anyone has any questions, again, we're gonna take questions by email. Karen, KG Richardson at Verizon.net will capture those questions and send them to Judge, and then we'll get those responses posted. So do we have Judge Hankins on the line here?
I'm on the line.
And you've got 5 minutes if you'd like to tell us, about yourself. And
All right, I need about 1 minute. My name is Pauline. I'm unopposed this time. I didn't really join to give a speech. I really wanted to hear from the other candidates. As a Republican, this gives me an opportunity to hear from both Democrats and Republican candidates that are running for the local boards. And so that's really why I contacted Mr. Parker, that I wanted to join in. But being that I was going to be online, if anyone had any questions for me, I would give you all an opportunity to ask me any questions. My email is hankins@atmc.net. If anyone has any question, they can email me directly and I can answer any questions. God bless America. Thank you all for the opportunity.
anybody have any questions right now? I don't know if you can see anything in the chat there, Pete.
No.
Okay. All right. Well, I think we've, since Chris Ward's no longer with us, that concludes the candidate statements. I want to thank everybody, all the candidates, especially President Carl Parker, who through this effort has had the patience of Job, I think. I'd like to thank my friend Karen Richardson, whose passion made this forum possible. Our Zoom wizard, Pete Bevan, and especially Dr. Paula Tucker Hogan, who yesterday offered to jump in and help with this question set. So thanks to each of you. But really, we want to thank you, the voter, for learning about the candidates. And I just want to say quickly, if you vote absentee, pay really careful attention, especially to the envelopes. You have to print your name, you got to get your witness and your signature on there, and the witness has to put the full address on that envelope. So it's just a heads up. So I think Carl may have some closing remarks, and again, thank you so much for your patience.
Thank you, Marilyn.
And we'll go to Carl to close us up here.
Okay, we get closed out. Just to reiterate something, Marilyn has already thanked the whole host of the ones that put this together. We couldn't have done it without them. And on this David Sank, I've looked over David Sank platform, and I certainly endorse his platform of the NAACP. We don't necessarily endorse the name of David Sank or any parties, but the platform of David Sank have one that certainly that the NAACP wants to push and support that platform, as well as Bill Flythe, and to endorse his platform. One of the things that David Sank said on his that would that you could elaborate with Bill is that you need some diversity, which brings on strength. And I believe that if we have some studies and classes on cultural diversity, we will certainly improve our situation with all the things that's happened around it. Ryan Smithwick is certainly have an interested statement and interesting person to me. Tom Simmons. Tom, we can endorse Tom because Tom is on board. Tom has been in the business for a long time. He actually knows what he's doing. We certainly need to give him a chance to show us just what he's doing. Lora, you have interest and have intrigued me by your phone call. I see you didn't have an accident. You went home and text me and emailed me. We got everything straight. We certainly want to be able to look at you real strong because we think you can do some great things. Pauline is doing real well. We just want to vote for her just out of saying Pauline. Let us go ahead and close out. And I appreciate all of you. This has been a great forum. It's been long. Marilyn was trying her best. Keep it within that hour.
2 hours.
But let us close out and just thank God for us being here. So let the grace of God and the sweet communion of his Holy Spirit rest, rule, and abide within us now and forevermore. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank
Good
you.
night. Good
Thank
evening
you.
to every one of you.
We'll get
David,
those questions out.
David was the only Republican on here. I know you fell alone, but we were glad to see you anyway.
David Robinson.
David Robinson.
Glad to be here. Absolutely pleasure.
Yeah,
All right.
we're pleased to have both candidates come. That's what we were after.
Me and Sherrill go back a long way, and I think you're
That's
going to see a very civil campaign between the two of us.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, that's good.
Right.
I'm glad y'all have a good relationship.
Mhm.
Good luck to both of you.
Okay.
Thank you, Carl. Thank you for your
everybody.
leadership.
Okay. Pete is my hero.
Yeah. Been here.
Okay.
Good night, everyone.
Y'all,
Bye-bye.
Good night.
Okay, thank you.
Marilyn?
Bye.
Good
Marilyn?
night, everyone.
Good night.
Thank
We're
you.
done.
Great job.
Brandon, you're gonna take care of, you're gonna
Appreciate
take
it.
care of
Thank
that
you.
recording?
Yeah, I've got a recording, plus I've got the chat room fully copied.
Cool. Great.
So I'll send that off to you shortly.
Super.
Okay.
Okay, guys. You
Later.
can leave or I'll just shut it down.